is the capital. Oh, what a beautiful weather, exceptional. Addis Ababa to weather for the land. Place is spiritual. Addis Ababa to weather for the well, our name is again full of love. Salam to Ethiopia. Salam Salam to Addis Ababa. Salam Salam to Ethiopia. Salam Salam to Addis Ababa. Salam
Welcome to African History Month. The African History Month is an annual event to celebrate the achievements of people of African descent and acknowledge Africa's enormous contributions to the world's civilization. The African History Month is celebrated from 1st of March to 31st of March. Join us in celebrating the African History Month.
Greetings, this is Miata Chroma. Welcome to African History Month.
Hi everyone, welcome. It's African History Month. I am Diana Marquis Solomon and I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. It's African History Month.
We are Africans, not because we are born in Africa, but Africa is born in us. My name is Elsa and this is my African History Month.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to African History Month. And this is our second show of the month. And we've kickstarted the show with some wonderful Ethiopian music, and we're going to continue with that just before we get fully started. Greetings, everybody. That was Empress Jerusalem from Ethiopia with some beautiful Ethiopian reggae music. Um, we've got an exciting program today, and we have some fantastic not hosts, guests. We have some fantastic guests. My name is Diana Markey Solomon, and I'm really pleased to be one of your hosts today. Our topic for today is the history of coups in Africa and impact on African development. And I think we have time to show another song. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Please hold on. In the meantime, I'll just let you see what some people have to say about African history.
Welcome to African History Month. The African History Month is an annual event to celebrate the achievements of people of African descent and acknowledge Africa's enormous contributions to the world's civilization. The African History Month is celebrated from 1st of March to 31st of March. Join us in celebrating the African History Month.
Greetings, this is Miata Chroma. Welcome to African History Month.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's African History Month. I am Diana Markey Solomon, and I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. It's African History Month.
We are Africans, not because we are born in Africa, but Africa is born in us. My name is Elsa, and this is my African History Month.
Greetings, everybody. I understand that you couldn't hear me before, so welcome to African History Month and welcome to our second show. So pleased to be here to be hosting with my co-host, Erisalim Kibet. Hi, Erisalim.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing? Nice
I'm
to see
doing
you.
good. Lovely to see you as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to be hosting this show together, and we've got an exciting program today. Erisalim, would you like to say a few words?
No, I'm excited. I think you've mentioned that this is our second year celebrating African History Month. And I think last week we started it, we kicked it off, and it was fantastic. We had great speakers, really good discussions, and hopefully that we can, each choose to take action item from. And I'm excited for today's event, also looking forward to what our panelists and speakers have brought for us, and to be able to kind of learn, grow, and be able to share that wealth of knowledge with us and with our followers on different channels.
Yeah, great. I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors, the United States of Africa and the Council of Ethiopian Diaspora Action. Thank you so much. And also to, of course, the founder, Daniel Mwambwana, who without him, none of this would be possible. So we're really grateful, Daniel. You're doing a fantastic work. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to hold up proceedings. I'm going to allow our speaker, our keynote speaker, to come on and speak to us, because he's waiting in the background patiently. We're not going to hold him back any longer. I'm going to bring you on screen. Welcome to me. Welcome to our show. It's an honor to have you with us. I'm just going to give a brief introduction about you to our viewers. Okay, so if you don't know who Dumi Senda is, he is the founder and CEO of Dumi Senda Limited, and he's known as the Rags to Impact Coach. Dumi has gone from a life of menial labor with little prospects to Oxford University, MSc graduate, and go-to diversity and inclusion, D&I expert, and coach with extensive experience of working with top global organizations across several sectors in 5 continents. Aside from sharing the stage with global leaders such as members of the European Parliament, Vice President of Zambia, Guy Scott, King Letsi III of Lesotho, and renowned African billionaire and pro-democrat Mo Ibrahim, among others, Dumi has been invited to the UK Prime Minister's official residence, number 10 Downing Street, in recognition of his impact in helping organizations broaden workplace equity, diversity, and inclusion, and individuals from marginalized backgrounds maximize their career and life outcomes. Among several publications that include poetry, anthologies, children's books, and academic papers, Dumi has contributed to a Penguin published book on Ubuntu, an African philosophy encapsulated by the phrase, "I am because we are," which promotes shared humanity across difference, forwarded by global human rights icon, the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And he's going to speak to us about time for Africans to wake up. If not now, when? Welcome, Dumi. Oh, I think you're muted, Dumi, just like I was. It's so easily done. Okay.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right, great. I greet you all in the very spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are. And because we are, I am. But on this day, such an important day for all of us, Africans, African nationals, African descendants, friends of Africa all over the world, I have to be really honest with us and with you and with myself and say, I don't know why you are here. But I'm neither here to inspire nor motivate, nor appeal, nor appease. I'm here to challenge, to push, to prod, to urge. It is time for Africans to wake up. If not now, then when? Our slumber is real. It has gone on for way too long. Look at our social media presence that lacks a presence beyond consumerism, displaying our bodies more cheaply than tomatoes at a market store. Our cultures eroded by our insatiable appetites for all things West-centric. Our children entrapped in lands foreign, in pursuit of validation that devalues their authenticity. And still, I don't know why you are here. But I'm neither here to inspire nor motivate, nor appeal, nor appease. I'm here to challenge, to push, to prod, to urge, to awaken. It is time for Africans to wake up. If not now, then when? We are descendants of great states and rich heritages. How come we have become the earth scum? When COVID hit, we were chased with whips up and down China streets. And now we cling on with fingertips on bus and train fleets in Ukraine as bombs from a war we did not start hits. Told with the face as straight as they come. Your eyes, they are not blue enough for you to get a seat. Get down. Go back and die. See, you are not civilized enough a refugee to cross the border to safety. Have you not read the poster? It says no blacks, no blacks, no blacks. No room for imposters across the gun line. Sir, you have crossed the line. Ma'am, you have crossed the line. Go back and die. Yet I still don't know why you are here. But I'm neither here to inspire nor motivate. No appeal, no appease. I'm here to challenge, to push, to prod, to urge, to awaken. It is time for Africans to wake up. If not now, then when? The stats speak with no starter. We are the global majority. An ever youthful demography, a continent of youths that will turn and churn the global commerce and drive it like cogs of a machine. And yet here we are, not awake to who we are. less more to who we can be if we be who we truly are. And yet I still don't know why you are here. But I'm neither here to inspire, nor motivate, nor appeal, nor appease. I'm here to push, to urge, to awaken. It is time for Africans to wake up. If not now, then when? A thought to ponder. What happened to the United States of Africa, the Nkrumahs, Sankaras, Lumumbas, and Nyereres dreamt? What happened? What became of the leadership born of the spirit of Ubuntu, the Mandelas and Tutus conceived? What happened? What birthed the nightmare of heroes turned dictators up and down our continent? The same people who gave us liberation from civilization that now snatch it away like a pack of greedy hyenas entrusted with the welfare of goats. And so, children of the soil, flee the continent full of gold, to face the cold, to endure the cold of global anti-blackness miles away from home. A reminder that we are but victims of the mess we have made of Africanness, either denying our roots or like fools fighting one another for no cause. But still, just like our visionaries of old, that dreamt of a continent free from civilization, so must we conceive, so must we envision of a continent freed from the illusion of freedom outside of unity. We have work to do, you and I. We have work to do. We have work to do to free African nationals up and down the continent. We have work to do to free African descendants across the world. We have work to do to restore our pride in who we are and to gaze our eyes on who we can be if we be who we truly are. We have work to do to say to the world with a voice clear and unflinching, no. No to anti-blackness. No to racism. No to war. And yes to respect and valuing and protection of humanity across all colors, across all nationalities, across all creeds, across all geographical divides. Yes to genuine equity, diversity, and inclusivity. This, my brothers and sisters from the continent, outside the continent, my brothers and sisters of all colors and creeds and nationalities, this is why I am here. And by the very spirit of Ubuntu, I am because we are. And because we are, I am. And so I hope this is why you are here too. To unite for a cause that can free all of us, that can respect all our humanity. The time for Africans to wake up is now. If not now, then when? Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very powerful, very inspiring, and thought provoking. You know, when you spoke about how, we leave our warm countries to go to the cold, unwelcoming environment. There's a saying that I'm not an African because I was born in Africa, but I'm African because Africa was born in me. And I was born in the UK, raised in the UK, but I felt compelled after all my experience as an African born in the UK. I felt compelled that I had to come home, and that's why I'm home. I'm in Ghana now. I've made, my family, we made the decision. UK can never be our home. We have to come home, and we are. And I tell you, there is work to be done here, because it seems like the people here don't understand.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there. I was just going to say, I really echo your words, and congratulations for taking that move. And I think actually, when we look at what we are trying to achieve as a people, globally and beyond the continent, I think Africanness, as you rightly put, transcends being born in the continent, right? And I think right in there, the kind of globalism of Africanness is what really can drive this sense of unity and togetherness. So even for someone who's living in the United States or in Africa, who probably maybe has never been to the continent or may not ever be to the continent, you can still tap into that Africanness, into that humanity. And the beauty of Africanness is it is inviting, right? It's inviting through these amazing cultural and philosophical mindsets, Ubuntu, embracing. So we embrace difference. We embrace difference beyond colors of skin. We embrace difference beyond nationality. And so I think actually the world where it is right now, with the turmoil globally, needs to tap into Africanness. I think we are well positioned to provide global leadership, not only because we've got the largest and fastest growing population of young people, but because we've got cultures that are embracing, that don't say because you're white, we other you, we marginalize you, or that say just because you were born in Britain or in the US, we marginalize you, but rather they're embracing, they see the humanity of everyone. So I think we can say those two messages. One, the message about let's respect, the value and, dignity of everyone. And also let's embrace our differences. I think those two things are quite reconcilable and can live peacefully together.
Well said. Well said. I couldn't have put it better myself. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Beth Linda. I think she's in the background somewhere. But before I do that, I'm going to bring my co-host onto the screen. How you doing, sis? I think you're muted. You're muted.
Awesome.
And if Beth Linda is in the background, can she prepare to come and speak? Thank you. Okay, Jerusalem. Are you ready, Beth Linda? Yes, okay. Great. Okay, so we have Beth Linda Nabwaya, and she's a student from Southern New Hampshire University, and she's going to speak to us about African Girl Child. And after that, Jerusalem will come on and speak with us too. Okay, over to you, Beth Linda.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Betty Linda Nabwire from Kenya, but a student at Southern New Hampshire University. And today we are celebrating African, and I saw a need to talk about African girl child, because I believe the world, even Africa, Africa, will never grow when we don't have the girl child in it. And I saw the need to talk about the girl child, the struggle the girls are going through, and how we can try and help the girl child to overcome their challenges. And coming from a very local place in Kenya, in a village place, I'm able to see cases where girls are suffering. A girl is a girl is a is a small child. He has just big dreams, becoming famous, becoming somebody in the community, but in the middle of the way things backslide, and we never saw them, even those people who are performing well while with them in the school. So like I saw the need of us talking about what are these challenges, because they are my friends, they are some of my families, and I chose to talk about a girl child specifically in our communities. We know, like, since back then in African community, before even civilization, we had this sense whereby a girl was not to be heard. Men were the heads, and the girls were to follow. And we had this whereby the girl's place is in the kitchen. The girl place do 1, 2, 3, like we're being counted what we should do. Even in other communities, what the girls should eat and what they shouldn't eat. So according to me, I saw the need of talking out about this and to see where the challenge comes from and how we can change the mindset of few people or few governments so that they can treasure the girl's child. I thank God by this time there are at least people who really are there open to talk about it. But some of the communities, even for now in Africa, we are seeing in the families where you will see maybe they have 2 girls or even 4 girls and 1 boy. You see most of parents are paying more attention to their boy child because they believe that these 4 girls soon they are going to get married and they're going to leave their families, then we are going to remain with this boy. So when when we educate a girl child, we are trying, like, it's like trying to give more chance to where she is going to get married and leaving our own person who is going to stay with us in this family forever. So such kind of mindset, I think when we deal with such kind of mindset, I think we'll have to be equal and try to see a girl child that's important as a boy child. We're even for now we are seeing where family whereby when a girl or a lady gets married in, that when you never sired any boy child after your husband dies, like you have to return to your home. They don't see the need of you. There's no inheritance for girl child. There's no this equal participation even in family discussion maybe in other governments. We are also seeing some governments are really trying hard to get this to fraction of a third gender in their government, but it's very hard for them because, like, most of people or most of community, most of men think that there's no way a girl can be in the same level with them. So I chose to talk on this problem where it started, and it's not starting anywhere far away from our family. I see this problem starting from our family. And when we try to change that mindset of our parents, that mindset of an African parent, so that they can notice that a girl has an equal opportunity as a boy. Take a girl to the school the way you take a boy to the school. Nurse that girl the way you could nurse your boy. So that's everything come out clear and they got all equal opportunities. We are also we are trying also to see most of governments working on this and also making sure that a girl child is taken to school. There's some difficult things coming on a girl's way while they're in school studying or in different fields, and you see them being discriminated, and this is a very bad thing to do for a girl child. They're being discriminated. Like, it's like somebody sees like a big deal to see a girl working in a mechanic industry or doing anything that is related to a men dominant field. So this has really been a very hard thing to deal with, and also we are able to see these girls suffering mentally. They don't have anyone to talk to them. They don't have the mentors to nurse them. They don't have people who they trust most. And even like I have this bit of a story whereby you see a girl is in puberty, maybe the family, he's not open to that family because he's never given a time to talk to their family members or what. So it reaches that time whereby maybe he's on his menstruation, then he feels so weird to talk to the parents because they never hear from her. So like he choose other ways. He goes and find maybe an older man who maybe he can tell his issues, who is ready to hear from her. And at last we see girls getting pregnant. If you ask her why did you have to do this? Because I didn't have money to buy me this, I didn't have money to buy me this. So you see these things when we start to open up, when our families, when our parents start to know that we have values as girls in the community, it's really going to help us. And also like we have seen other ladies who have come out big, like you two ladies, you are so motivation for us. So like if you are there, try and speak and let the people hear your voices, let them know that really you stand for girls. Let you come and down to the ground and talk to the girls. Bring them, motivate them, tell them what to do, help them nurture their talents, help them nurture their dreams. And I think if we do this, if like every girl who has tried and made it in life take at least grab 1, 2, 3 girls' hand down there to the village, I think we're going to make this world a better place. In 2, 3, 4, 5 years to come, we're going to dominate this world, and we're going to have equal opportunities, and we're also going to be at the same par with the men. So according to me, I just think it's high time we start talking to the girls, because like this, they, according to them, they see like they've been neglected. So it's a very high time we try to bring them to the table, tell them 1, 2, 3, talk to them what to do and what not to do, because some are getting lost because they don't get this knowledge where maybe you and me got to make us reach at this place. So I think it's very high time we talk about a girl child, and we make her participate, and we make her notice that she has a equal rights like a boy child. That's what I can say.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Blenda. I think such a powerful message, advocating for women and girls, not just in Africa. I think it's international. I see, even, most developed country, there's when it comes to just equally fairly, even having the education, having the experience. So I'm glad that you brought I think we have to empower the next generation, women and girls back home, to be able to be self-sufficient, empower them to be able to go to school, to invest, and to grow. And I think providing that mentorship to them, ensuring that they are, in fact, equal, if not better. Because I think the mothers are actually the ones that do everything, right? They have the added bonus. Yes, the fathers are the bread makers oftentimes, but I think mothers have a huge responsibility. When you empower a mother, you empower the entire family, the husband, the son, the daughters, everybody. And so thank you so much for coming on and sharing that knowledge with us. We do appreciate you. So after this, we're going into break, and then when we come back, we'll have our next speaker ready. Awesome. Thank you so much, Belinda.
Our story stretches back over 3,000 years. Africa is a land of struggle and tears, but yet we have faith and rejoice. Unite my people, let's be heard as one voice. Pick up African History Month, Rastafari. One love.
Hello, this is Empress Jerusalem JJ from Ethiopia. In African history, I have 3,000 years of history.
beautiful my name. Is that beautiful is your name? Can you make it easy, my friend? No matter what you still fight for the freedom and right. Beautiful is your name. On your trials and pain, I see the fire in your eyes, shining ever so bright. Beautiful, beautiful. Down the road that you have been, see the problems you overcame, see the words and nothing you say, the fire is going on the way, the rest of it out of the truth, the body you're going to do, the air I will not let you, the is going over. Beautiful is your name. Trying to make it easy, my dream. No matter what you survive for your freedom and right. Beautiful is your name. All these troubles and pain. I see the fire in your eyes, shining ever so bright. Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful being yourself. You need to change nobody else. But if you bring others at the test, you won't suffer from my happiness. You let my head rise in my home. Rising my head, rising my word. The seven past the seven. The night I didn't get back to you. Beautiful is your name. Trying to make it easy, my dream. No matter what you still fight for your freedom and right. Beautiful is your name. All your troubles and pain. I see the fire in your eyes, shining ever so bright. Beautiful. Beautiful. My wine and now forget to sickness and time. Meaning Capation, the spot I'm a great umbrella. Still living, I thank you. What if my God, I thank you. Beautiful. My name, try to make it in this my dream. No matter what else to fight for my freedom and right. Beautiful is my name. Through all my troubles and pain, I see the fire in my eyes, shining ever so bright. Beautiful. Hi, Jerusalem.
Hello. I did put coffee on my break. I've become a little more energetic. Don't mind me.
No problem, no problem. So we are going to, are we a bit early for our panel discussion? We seem to be about a few minutes early.
Okay. So we
So
might have a few people that are still
coming in.
Okay.
So I think we're going to continue with this wonderful music from Ras Jani. We've just heard from Entrance Jerusalem.
Perfect.
The music's so good. I don't see why we shouldn't play.
To me, I love reggae music. So
Yeah. Actually, we should have more. Hold on, I'm just going to show a little clip from our friends who like African History Month, and then I'll put some more music on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diane.
Okay.
Welcome to African History Month. The African History Month is an annual event to celebrate the achievements of people of African descent and acknowledge Africa's enormous contributions to the world's civilization. The African History Month is celebrated from 1st of March to 31st of March. Join us in celebrating the African History Month.
Greetings, this is Miata Chroma. Welcome to African History Month.
Hi everyone. Welcome. It's African History Month. I am Diana Marquis Solomon, and I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. It's African History Month.
We are Africans, not because we are born in Africa, but Africa is born in us. My name is Elsa, and this is my African History Month.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Thank you, Diana, for that music. So I guess we're going to dive into our next panel discussion. And I have a few people that are on backstage ready to come on. So our panel discussion is going to be on the history of coup in Africa and the impact on African development. So I think I see Abraham on backstage, so if he's ready, can bring him up. And then if he can do a little bit of an introduction, that'd be great. Abraham, are you ready? Okay. All right.
We seem to be having a slight technical issue in the background. I think Ibrahim is having a bit of a problem coming into the studio. So we'll wait just a few more moments for him to get sorted. Ibrahim, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm getting your greetings.
Greetings, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, how is everybody?
Everybody's good.
Yeah.
We can't see your camera. We can't see you at the moment. We can only hear you.
Yeah, now I'm fully available.
Okay, well, that's better. Okay, welcome.
It's very clear.
It's clear. Yes, it's
Okay.
clear. We can see you. Yes, we can see you.
Nice to be here anyway, and greetings to everybody watching us from online.
Would you like to introduce who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yes, it's okay. Yeah, I'm trying to have a backup in case one gadget has a problem, then we can be able to continue with another one to avoid any
All right,
problem.
that's very wise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can we add some more of our other panelists on? in the meantime? Dumi, welcome back.
Yeah, hard to get rid of me, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So would you like to just give a brief intro for those who maybe are just joining us, joining the show?
Oh, thank you so much. Hello, global family. Yeah, I'm Dumi Senda. Also, some people call me the Rags to Impact coach, for my really drawing on my journey of going, I guess, from a life of menial labor to get into a place where I can speak to amazing people like you right now. Yeah, I work in the diversity and inclusion space. I'm also a professional coach and a lover of everything African, the continent, the people, and also humanity in general. So I had the honor of giving the keynote earlier on. So pleasure to speak with you again.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. We have Ismaila Fati in the studio with us. Ismaila, can you hear us?
Yeah, good afternoon from Gambia, and good afternoon to great sons and daughters of Africa. I am Ismaila Fati, a final year political science and history student at the University of the Gambia. I am so glad to be part and parcel of this great discussion, which is geared towards the continental unification of Africa. And I must say, I am so honored to be here today, and thank you all.
You're welcome. You're most welcome. Ibrahima, are you able to introduce yourself now?
Yeah, I hope you can get me clear very well now.
Yes, you're clear. Thank you.
Yeah, so my name's Ibrahima Essise, a young Pan-African and also a humanitarian.
Maybe having connection issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we want to maybe just start, and when he gets the chance to speak, he can do a brief introduction?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Awesome. Perfect. So thank you both for coming on, introducing yourself. I'm excited. I think the topic we have at hand is very interesting, but also very important to talk about and kind of see, okay, how do we address some of this issue, right? History of coup in Africa and the impact on African development. So first, I guess I want to kind of give Dumi the opportunity to kind of tell us a little bit of, because Africa has a long history of coup, right? And so if you want to take like a minute or two and kind of just highlight some of the things from early on, and now there seems to be a rise in coup too in the past few years. So if you just want to give us a little bit of a brief overview, and then after you, I'll go to Ismail, and maybe he can give us a little bit of overview as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, Africa does have a history of coups, right? Perhaps the first place to start is that actually, when we look at the history of Africa, right, it's the long history of Africa. Then the history of coups actually becomes much shorter. Well, that's of course been going on for quite a while, but it's actually much shorter comparable to the longer history of Africa. I mean, Africa is a history of very stable states. In states of great might that, yes, sometimes absorbed other states, but there was kind of stability in those states. That's a longer history. But nonetheless, with, if you like, the importation of democracy in the Western version, so we have to understand that Africa already had political systems before Westerners, and settlers came into the continent. But particularly in the kind of that the post 80s, early 80s, that's where Africa went through this kind of period of turmoil, where certain groups were backed by certain Western and also sometimes Asian countries, particularly during the Cold War. That was a place of great instability for a lot of Africa. So that's why we see a lot of coups taking place. Things stabilized a bit more as you kind of went into the 1990s, but then we still have coups taking place. Sometimes they're actually driven by pro-democracy movements. I mean, if you look at Zimbabwe, is another kind of recent example where in the kind of the wind of pro-democracy, part of the incumbents, but still it kind of aligned more with the kind of pro-democracy movement, even though that has not come to fruition. So it's a very complex history, but I think I'll probably just make that point that the long history of Africa is longer than the coups. The coups kind of became a thing, with the kind of Western version of democracy that didn't settle as well as it had been hoped perhaps in Africa. And in the 90s, that's kind of quietened down, but we're still seeing these coups, aligned to pro-democracy movements often.
Awesome. So I do see Ibrahim is back on. So I don't know if you want to give it a try, give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself. And what the first question I had was, what was the history of coup in Africa? Can you hear me, Ibrahim?
I'm really facing some difficulties in getting you. I don't know if you can get in. You're getting me clearly.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes.
As far as you can get me, let me understand so we can be able to go, because I was facing troubles to understand what you were saying.
So I just wanted to give you the time to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit, maybe about the history of coup in Africa.
Okay, first and foremost, let me introduce myself as I call myself the promised child of Pan-Africanism. My name is Ibrahim Essise from the Republic of the Gambia, a young Pan-African activist and a scholar, also a humanitarian. This actually is one of those topics that most of the Africans are sometimes not even comfortable about it, because it is so much mixed in a way that you puppets and also revolutionaries all doing the same thing. Like coups in Africa from the independence, you can understand one perspective of it from the revolutionary perspective and also from the colonial perspective of it. From our side, sometimes the coups are celebrated. You can see, for instance, currently in Mali, like when citizens have been given a leadership that they never desired, or citizens have been imposed upon types of leadership that represents the foreign interest. So therefore, sometimes the military will take upon themselves in changing the status quo, and that way most of the Africans will welcome and celebrate these coups. But those are few in number, but majority.
Did we lose him?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's another area we need to do better back home. Connection, right? Internet connection. Okay, but I mean, so good to have him, to be able to take on that challenge and still join us. And so, Ismail, I see you're back as well. I know you had the opportunity to introduce yourself, but if you wanted to tell us a little bit about the history of coup in Africa and what your perspective is on it. And then we'll go on to the next question. Okay, we can't hear you. Let me see.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you so much for having me here. I am so glad to be part of this noble discussion about coups in Africa. But basically, I will start by saying that. Sorry? I don't know whether you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So basically, you cannot talk about development of Africa, you cannot talk about coups in Africa without looking at colonialism and imperialism in Africa. And first of all, in order to judge this continent, one has to be historically conscious in the sense that we have to look at the relationship of Africa with that of the colonialists as far as 15th century. And when we are to look at this great continent, which is Africa, we look at the pre-colonial African society. One will bear witness with me that Africans were not experiencing a lot of coups in Africa long before a white man came into this continent. Therefore, when the white man came to this continent, they claimed to be explorers whilst they were exploiters. They crippled down the continent, disunited its people, and looted its resources, and laid down a system that does not fit for African child to live and the unborn ones that are yet to be born. So therefore, if we are to talk about coups in Africa, then we have to look at Africa as far as 1950s. This was the time of independence when most African countries regained their political independence from various colonial masters. And one will ask this question, why Africans were experiencing coups after independence? One may be eager to ask. After a long fight of freedom to liberate our people, thinking that African people are going to be united and put Africa into one umbrella. But the question that one must ask again here is that why African people are experiencing coups after independence? Now, the issue here is that we need to understand historically that coups in Africa are not initially created internally, but these are factors that were created by outsiders. And that is to say, most of the coups in Africa were created by the European, the colonial masters, and the United States of America in order to achieve their selfish desires. In the year 1965, when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah wrote his famous book called The Last Stage of Imperialism, saying that Europeans will come in another form of colonialism, that is to say, to influence in the activities and the affairs of African people. But what happened at the end of the day, in the early 1980s, we have seen so many crop of new leaders that emerged. We have seen crop of Africans that emerge. And that is to say, this is to clarify that most of the leaders of the newly independent African state, they have a vision of building an Africa or to revitalize an Africa that loses its glory. And that is why when we are to talk about the founding fathers of Africa, we talk about Kwame Nkrumah with an ideology of Africa's unification. But Europeans, the West, they understand very well that if African people are united, what will be the outcome? We all understand and knew very well that Europe and America is nothing without Africa. So Europe and America is nothing without Africa, and that is to say, Europeans, in order for them to achieve their selfish desires, they have to instigate some crooks of African people who will actually come up to fight the founding fathers of Africa. We have seen what happened in the year 1966 in Ghana when Kwame Nkrumah was assassinated. We have also seen in the year 1963 when Sylvanus Olympios of Togo was assassinated. We have also seen in the year 1974 when Emperor Haile Selassie was overthrown. We have seen so many coups in Africa coming down to Angola, coming down to Sierra Leone, coming down to Nigeria to experience their first military coup in 1966. And we have even seen my own country, the Gambia, in the year 1994 when we experienced coup. And that is to say, there has been a rapid coup across the continent. You go down to Modibo Keita in Mali. You go down to Tomo Sankara of Burkina Faso, who was assassinated by his close friend Blaise Compaoré. So one will understand very well that the issue of coup in Africa was to ensure that African people does not unify and African people does not achieve their goals. And that is why if you look at most of the coups in Africa, you will understand very well that Europeans will have influence in it. They will have their mouth or their hands in it. We have seen what happened in Gaddafi in Libya, when NATO and other European allies they intervene to ensure that they fuel the coup, so that African people will not be liberated and African people will not.
Okay, I think maybe connection issues, but I wanted to, Abraham is back, so I wanted to kind of...
Now I'm back now. I just have to change from, I pray Africa and the whole of the continent, because I used to experience it in East Africa. Now I'm in the Western Africa, and it's the same problem. Africa cannot provide its own network for ourselves, and it's a challenge that we need to take as a generation. First and foremost, apology to all the Pan-Africans around the globe and all the comrades that are watching us. I've been able to fix the network. I'm sure that all of you can get me here loud and clear now. Yeah, so as I was doing the introduction, I am fortunate to move across the continent and then experience most of these things that we talked about in action, to understand what really happens to the people that are involved in it. For instance, when we started with the plots that were plotted against our father, Dr. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, who was not actually assassinated as the comrade might say, but it was a coup that was planned in order to just not to rob Ghana, but to sabotage and stop the independent struggle of the entire black people, not in the continent, but outside of the continent. Because Nkrumah's momentum was a spirit that the first ever black African, from the 600 years of Arabian imperialism in Africa, to the 400 years of European slavery, to the imperialism, to the colonialism, then this was the first black person to put a motivation in every daughter and a son of the continent that yes, you can become a president, but not just a puppet president, but a president that can change the life of the people of the continent. So this was what Nkrumah might not be assassinated physically, but it was an assassination that was done to the struggle. And also to be in Nigeria, when you have young military officers who are, some of whom who have been trained in outside of the continent, like when you talked about the Igbo soldiers that have been in the coup, but not entirely an Igbo coup. So you can understand from the Nigerian perspective of it, when the Northerners were used against the Easterners and the Southerners, and the BBC was using the rhetoric that it was an Igbo coup. It wasn't an Igbo coup, but you could understand these were things that might be in Africa, but was not for Africans. Also in Sudan was the same thing. So the coups in Africa, as I was saying in the introduction, have two sides of it. Sometimes you have revolutionaries in Africa who are pure Pan-Africans. Love of the continent and love of their people is what led them to seek for the change. If constitutional ways have been sabotaged by the ruling class and also their supporting powers outside of the continent, and the citizenry have no other means but to resort to the guns, nobody in their right sense will ever call Thomas Sankara an aggressor or someone else, but he came to power through coup d'etat. And we, as sons of this continent, celebrated his coup d'etat. And if we have a chance to repeat coup d'etats like that of Sankara 100,000 times today, we do them again. But they are different from the other coups that have been done against the revolutionaries of the continent. So this is how you put it, because generalization sometimes becomes a problem. So we look at the people who are behind the coup, the motives behind the coup, and what the end results were. Because whenever you see a coup in Africa, according to records, like for instance that of the Omar al-Bashir in Sudan, you've never seen any Western power coming to change Omar al-Bashir for 30 years. Because the Omar al-Bashir's government might be an Islamist government, But I personally have been in Darfur. Not what I heard in the Western media, nor what I heard from other media. I've seen places in Darfur where you can travel almost more than the size of my small country in the Gambia. You can't see anybody because there was a total state-sponsored ethnic cleansing of African people. So such coup d'etats are always like that. But if the coup d'etats that have been done in the favor of the African people, that is meant to liberate and put development in the African continent, are the coup d'etats you will hear from the media. And I can make an example of it before giving a platform to another comrade. I have a little brother who is currently studying in the University of the Gambia, and he's majoring in political science. And last year I was in Sudan. The lecturer actually gave them an assignment. An assignment was dictatorship in Africa. And the information they're supposed to read in order to write their works from was the fabricated movie that has been done in the memory of Idi Amin. So I happened to watch this movie in order to write the commentary for him. But what I did for him was to write the commentary, the narrative of Idi Amin according to the movie. Then the conclusion, I have to write who Idi Amin was. Because Idi Amin to the Western people, sometimes not the Idi Amin when you go to the northern Uganda. So this is how always you have perspective of things. You put things into perspective. Yes, someone might be bad to us, but it's not always whoever is bad to the media or whoever is bad to the outside African continent can be bad to us.
Thank you. I think you guys dived on and shared some really important points that you actually skipped ahead of my questions, which is really awesome. Diana, I want to know if you have anything to add before I go on into the next question.
Well, what I wanted to what came out of this, because I confess I don't know too much about coup. I don't know too much about the details. I know that they happen. And I know sometimes the people are glad about it, but most of the time, all I see is destruction, and I see the West putting their puppets in place. This is what I see going on. So what has come out of this is that it robs us of great leaders, and sometimes it and as a result of that, it makes future leaders very weak, and they become scared to even love the countries and serve the countries the way they need to serve the countries. And therefore they just become corrupt because they know that, okay, we don't have nuclear weapons to fight back. This is the reason why the West don't want Africa to have nuclear arms, because if we did like Russia, they couldn't bully us like they do. They couldn't come and throw their weight around and tell us what to do and exploit us. But we don't have that kind of military power. So they treat us the way they do. And this is what I see is the problem. And so look at what happened to what's his name, the one in Tanzania who Magufuli. I mean, he stood up for his country. He stood up and he said, we don't need your solution. We have our own. And because of that, I believe he lost his life. And so it makes people afraid, and it makes people think, oh, well, I don't want to die. So I'm just going to toe the line, and I'm just going to please the West, and I'm going to live my life. And, if I can just look after myself, that's good enough for me. But it's not good enough for the nations. It's not good enough for the people on the continent. And this is the problem that we have. If any leader is going to come now, they're going to have to be exceptionally fearless against the pressure that they have from outsiders who seem to just have their way with us. That's what I get from it.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge topic to dive into. I think Duma earlier mentioned about wake up, right? And that's a message for the people, not for the leaders, because I think, like you mentioned, there is so much pressure on the leaders, on African leaders, right? They have the imperialists holding their hand.
Yeah.
And then the economy is hard, so our people are screaming, hey, we need food, we need this, we need technology. And so there is just so much. So I think for really truly to liberate ourselves, we have to come together and we have to stand together. And that's the only way out. That was the only way out then. That's the only way out now. Now we have to wake up. We have to, awaken our generation, our peers, and be able to do that. But before going on topic, I'm gonna come back into adorable. We're gonna go back into my next question, which was gonna be, why Africa has so many coups just in the past. Hello. And just in the past, few decades, and then which I think everybody kind of touched on. Abraham touched on it a little bit, as well as Esmail, why we have it and why it's sort of like now coming back again. And then also talking a little bit like what's the cause? What is the root cause that we have coups, and whether it's in West Africa, East Africa, wherever it may be, what is the cause of it? Who's involved? I think Abraham touched a little bit on that as well. So what is the cause? Who is involved in it? And is there ulterior motives, right? When these coups are happening in Africa, what are the alternative motives that are continuing to gaslight? I think somebody earlier mentioned about them inciting violence or portraying certain leaders or certain groups as evil and trying to instigate tribal conflicts and stuff in order to bring these puppets into power, right? And so I guess just keeping those questions in mind, I want to go to Dumi, if you wanted to just touch a little bit on that, and then I see that Peter is in studio. So after Dumi, I'll go ahead and introduce Peter, and we'll go on from there.
Thank you so much, and I think amazing insights have been shared all around. In some sense, I want to, I guess, also remind us that because they can be a feeling that almost like we can view Africans as lacking agency, right? It's just being these kind of puppets on a string that others use. But I think we have to also challenge ourselves, to really ask ourselves, what kind of leaders are we developing in the continent and for the continent, right? If it seems to be much easier for someone to come and put money in the back pocket of an African leader, and then they're going to basically, overlook the welfare of their people. I think we have to challenge ourselves and take our responsibility and say, what really matters for me and to me as a leader. And also I think part of that is also our citizenship waking up, one, to the importance of politics, because often I think, in a lot of African societies, citizens tend to be involved in politics in what you might call kind of rally kind of politics, where you are given T-shirts and, someone stands in front of you, punches the air, says, rousing words. But have they communicated with you what their vision for the country is, what the policies are, how they're going to be held accountable, what they're going to actually deliver for your people? So, I think if we don't plug that, we're always going to be in trouble, and we're always going to be, in some ways, blaming outsiders. And and it's not to say where we are pointing fingers of, to outside influence. We are wrong in that. We're absolutely right. Often of that, there's a lot of influence, and you're right. A lot of African leaders are under pressure, but we also put ourselves under a lot of undue pressure by not, actually valuing leadership that is for the people. Right? We're beginning to see examples of, I think, what I might call really good examples in the continent. Looking at what is happening in Rwanda, I think that's a really good example to look at, where actually you can see strengthening of institutions, you can see development, really kind of making an impact on infrastructure and things like that. Another example, I think, is Ghana, where, industry is beginning to, to also rise. You can see actually Ghana is one of the biggest suppliers of cocoa, and I was so inspired by the president saying, we're not going to export our cocoa to Switzerland anymore. We're going to produce it here. The Ghanaians who've never, in some parts of Ghana, who've never eaten a chocolate, when actually they are the biggest producers of cocoa. So that doesn't make sense, right? So I think we have to embellish our Pan-Africanism with a pragmatism and an accountability that really looks at ourselves. When you point a finger, often three point back at you. So we have to take that seriously too and say, what are we doing as citizens? What are we doing as leaders for our people, for our continent, and negotiate on our behalf, and know that you can sit at a table with someone on the other side of the table and expect them to negotiate for you, right? States by their nature tend to be very self-serving, right? But so we have to also understand that what does it look like to have leaders who negotiate on our behalf, and then look at minimizing those influences that are also not helpful for us.
Okay. Awesome. Right on. I think like you just put it really well. Look to ourselves, one, to say, okay, what am I doing? How am I mentoring others? Even the younger generation, how do I pass on my knowledge to my brothers and sisters? So that's very important. Peter, I don't know. I think his camera is off, so maybe he got disconnected. So Abraham or Ismail, if you have anything you wanted to add as far as the cause, who's involved, and what are the ulterior motives of these coups?
Yeah, I'll let Ismaila go first. Ismaila.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you so much, brother Ibrahim. Yeah, well, I think basically like what my brother said, I think yeah, basically we need to ask ourselves this question, and what kind of leadership do we have in Africa? I think leadership is a big problem in Africa, you know. And until and unless African leaders understand that leadership is about service, we are going nowhere. And African leaders must also take the responsibility of putting things together. And Africans also, my citizen, my fellow African, we should stop electing hungry and poor and selfish people into office. Somebody who cannot even take care of himself, you put him into office, the first thing he will be thinking of is his pocket. How am I going to enrich myself? This is one of the motive of African people, African leaders, when they come into office. What do I do to enrich myself? They don't look at the national interest, but they look at their own individual selfish interests. And sometimes I even ask myself, is it that our African leaders are going to Europe or America to go and learn from these people, you know, and come back here to come and mismanage us? Because you can't even understand, you can't even believe. How can you be born here, you run up here, you did all your education here, you know the problem of Africa because you are on ground here in Africa, and yet you come to office, you are maltreating those people as donkeys, as, you know, as cards. It's so sad. So African leaders, you know, they must be ready to serve. In fact, I always keep saying this in classrooms that, you know, we need leaders in Africa, not looters. Individuals who are thinking of their coffers, who are thinking of their pockets. Africa will never develop without putting right people in the right position. History has shown to us 30 years ago, China was a backward country, but the Chinese, they know that and understand that leadership is about service. And that is why today China is moving forward. What happens to Africa? Africa is one of the richest resources country on earth, the home of human civilization. And yet today we are the poorest. So therefore, leadership is a problem in Africa, and also bad governance and corruption. Corruption stands the wheel of the development of Africa. If you go to many parts of African countries, corruption become the order of the day since independence 1965. So therefore, African people, they must be ready to sacrifice and serve their people rather than their own individual pockets.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Abraham.
Ibrahim?
Yeah.
I wonder if he can hear us. He seems to be static.
Yeah, maybe he's frozen. Okay. That's okay. Yeah, I think we did dive into a little bit about it, and I think the responsibility falls on everyone that's involved and everyone that has this vision for Africa, right? To lift our people out of poverty, to be able to empower the younger generation and to take control of their destiny. And so, really good point. So I'm going to go into my next question, which I think we touched on a little bit earlier, but still I want to kind of see. So why are coups making a comeback now? Because there seems to be, we know what's going on in Sudan, Mali. Somebody mentioned earlier there was an attempt in Ethiopia, focused in Somalia. So there are some east, west. There are some in different parts of Africa. So why is that? Is it because Africa is now finally realizing their power and their resources, like you mentioned earlier, Dumi, about hey, we're not going to import the cacao anymore. We're going to start using it, and we're going to start feeding our people. We're going to start maximizing our profit. Is it because people are ready to make change? Is it good? Is it bad? What does that look like? So I kind of wanted to start with Dumi maybe, and kind of get your perspective on why is it an attempt to just put a puppet where they're not able to do those things? Is it a movement of truly the people, like earlier how Ibrahim was mentioning? So please go ahead.
Thank you so much. In some sense, I think your question has the answers, doesn't it? It's a bit of all those things that you mentioned. It's the history of Africa, much like the history of any place, is very complex. But I think part of that, there's probably some legacy issues that are causing this kind of return, as you called it, of coups. I think there's still a lot of institutional, almost like an institutional weakness in how we state make. So I think until we strengthen our institutions, for a start, particularly the kind of civil facing institutions, then the armies tend to, for instance, the incumbents will always fund a strong army. They'll always, kind of almost sustain their power. In Africa, we know that, to take power, you need the backing of the army. That I think that's almost the case across the continent. There are exceptions in some countries where, the army kind of stays out or does not influence who actually takes up power. But if I give you an example of my own country, Zimbabwe, it is, I think, well documented and well known that the opposition won elections a number of times. But just because they won elections doesn't mean they would be able to take up a coup. So to take up a power. So in some sense, you could view that as almost an inverted coup. Inverted coup in the sense that the incumbents is remaining in power and stopping someone else coming into power who's actually won an election. So therefore, you could view that as a coup, but kind of turned upside down in some sense. Then the same example of Zimbabwe is an interesting one in the sense that the recent the coup that we had, the recent one that I think is more known by people, when Mugabe, who was of course in power for a long time, was kind of ousted by one of, in some sense, there was a sense that this was a people movement. There was this, everyone went out in the streets and celebrated, and it was like democracy has come, here we are. But actually, in the end, it was swapping one, kind of ZANU-PF incumbent with another, and a continuation of the same status quo. And people have been frustrated because this kind of freedom that they celebrated is not materialized. I'm sure my brother here is going to touch on other examples and give other layers, but I thought maybe let me contribute that one, particularly drawing on the example of Zimbabwe, which of course I know very well. That you might thinking about coups as just being the removal of incumbents by almost opposition might itself not be quite accurate, because sometimes incumbents remain in power by exercise of some sort of coup using the army, whereas and then also equally sometimes they are removed from power, but it's just swapping of the status quo with another version of the status quo, and that doesn't lead to change that we want. So in some sense, I think it comes back to the point of institutional strength, particularly in kind of civil service institutions.
Awesome. Yeah. I think you hit right on. And it's the illusion that yes, there is change, right? But is it true change, and is it impactful for the people, for the civilian, the ordinary people? So Ismail, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. Basically, I would like to say that I think African. I will start from. I will continue from where my brother stopped. I think it's high time for African leaders to know that leadership is about service, and it's high time for Africans to know who we are, where we came from, and what we stand for as Africans. Because Marcus Garvey once said, society, people who don't know the history of their origin is like a tree without any root. We can fall down anytime. It's high time for Africans for us to know where we came from. The journey we've overcome is too long, and we should try by all means to actualize the dreams of the founding fathers of Africa. And we must love each other as African people. That is so that if I travel from Gambia to Nigeria, I might not be seen as a foreigner, but as an African brother. We must be ready to appreciate and love ourselves as African people, so that if you travel, you those who are in the diaspora, so that if you come back to the continent, you are not seen as a foreigner, but as our African brother, so that we can embrace each other. That unity must be there in order for us to build the Africa we want for the unborn generation that are yet to come. And therefore, coup is something that we all understand that it has been going on in Africa since in the early 1950s. And if you look at most of these coups during those periods, we will understand very well, these are initiated by the Western allies. And that is to say, they want to wipe away the good leaders and bring bad leaders in Africa, so that there will be instability and there will be no development in Africa. That is why if you look at Ethiopia, after Emperor Haile Selassie, and just to Haile Mariam of Ethiopia who came, and also you go down to Congo, Mobutu Sese Seko, you go to many African countries, you tend to understand that we have this crop of leaders who don't understand about leadership and who don't understand what leadership means. So therefore, in order to elevate and catapult Africa into higher level, Africans also, I always say this to young Africans, that we must be ready to stay in Africa and make Africa a better place. No one will make Africa a better place for us. We must be ready to stay in Africa, work in Africa, sacrifice for Africa, and ensure that we actualize the dreams of the founding fathers of Africa. So therefore, I will say it one again, what we need in Africa is unification and peace. We must love and embrace each other as one Africa, from Gambia to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, from east to west, from south to north. We must embrace and love each other, and we make this as a revolutionary change to ensure that we have a unified Africa, and Africa that will speak on one voice, and Africa that will love herself, and Africa that will be there for African kids that are yet to be born. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That was powerful. So my last question is, so we talked a little bit why, who's involved. There's definitely alternative motives with some of these coups. And so now I kind of want to talk a little bit about what is the impact on the civilians, on the economy, and development of Africa. Because it seems like I'm from Ethiopia, and I've been following, what's been going on, what seemed to be a failed attempt to overthrow the current government. And I see the destruction that's done trying to do that. Not just the economic destruction of hospitals, schools, and all those things, but also on the people too. Like, these are things that will take us generations and generations to repair and to be able to heal that wound that now we have amongst the people. And this instigation, amplification of these tribalist or ethnocentric extremist voices by the West, from my experience when it comes to Ethiopia. I have seen them amplify those voices that are intentionally aimed at damaging the country and sponsoring that division within the country to create instability. So I guess I want to hear from you guys as to, what is the impact on the civilians, the economy and development as Africa, and really trying to get us where we need to be able to be self-sufficient. to have development and to optimize our resources so that we are able to solve some of the big challenges that we have. Dumi, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love your questions because they come with answers. Yeah. I mean, I guess the greatest impact, as you rightly mentioned, these coups, they stunt growth, right? They stunt development, but not only growth of infrastructure, but also they stunt our confidence as a citizenry, right? And as a nation. When you've gone through what you've gone through, you just there's a national pride that gets eroded, when these things have taken place. We as citizens and as citizens of the global world, we want to stand proudly and say, I am African, I'm from this part of the world, and kind of point to the great things that we can do as a people, and contribute on the world stage. So it's clear that coups stunt growth and they stunt development, not only of infrastructure but also of people. But the point I want to highlight in some sense then, given that we know that coups stunt growth and they stunt development and they even stunt democracy, if you like, in whatever version you want to call it, then the question for us becomes, okay, so what for us, right? What do we do then as a result? I think the first thing I think as Africans, we need to really realize where our strength lies. So grateful for our visionary forefathers and foremothers. The likes of the Nkrumahs, Mbuyane. We often talk about the men, right? We don't talk about the women. That's something that we need to really also get right in our kind of talking about history. There are a lot of amazing women who have led liberations in the continent, and today there are a lot of women who are contributing, including yourselves here on this platform, leading this platform. So it's not about all of us, just us men, right? I think what we need to do is realize where actually our strength lies. When our forefathers and foremothers envisioned, a kind of a Pan-Africanism that connected the continent across its geographical locations in the continent, within the continent, I would say I'm almost confident that if Nkrumah was here today, and Nyerere was here today, and Lumumba were here today, and Sankara were here today, and all these other people that we talk about, if they were here today, they would recognize that also now the world has become very global. So if you look at the success of countries like China and India, part of their success has been actually in being able to tap into the kind of globality of their citizenry, right? They have some of the largest diaspora population, and being able to keep that, if one thing that I so admire about people from such countries such as India and China is that even if they are here in the UK, they're still very much a Chinese person. They're still very much an Indian in the way they live their lives, in their culture, the languages they teach their children. So there's a pride, there's an identity that does not wane or ebb and flow depending on which geography you've moved to. So what that would then mean practically in terms of development of our economies, development of our world knowledge, would mean that you Jerusalem in Ethiopia do not have to have some sort of mandate by the government signed for you to trade with the UK, because you can do business with Dumi directly, right? You can do business with people in the US. You can do business with people with Africans in Germany, right? So that globality and internationality is a strength, and so I think, and there's something amazing about Africa, right? I always say there's no place on this planet which, when someone visits from whatever background, I mean, I've been amazed when you see, let's say, even a European or British person who's had the opportunity and privilege of stepping foot on the continent, wherever in the continent, they become so passionate about it. They want to contribute. They want to volunteer. They want to give something. So we've got this strength of an affinity that people who interact with us fall in love with us. And I think we should embrace that. We should not shun that. If you look at history, look at even when countries like the US, when they went into the so-called Great Depression, and when Europe and other parts of the world suffered great economic losses, it was because they were taking a very defensive posture that closes themselves out of the rest of the world. In fact, I think Africa needs to have the confidence to project itself on the global stage. We've got young people who are all over the world. Let's reach out to them and tell them that we love you. You are one of us. You are just as African as someone in Zimbabwe, someone in Zambia, in Botswana, in Ghana, in Ethiopia, wherever. You are just as much African. But equally, let's harness the affinity that comes from that power, that pull power that Africa has, that people want to contribute meaningfully. But while doing that, also, of course, being very pragmatic in how we engage in relationships that we engage in, the trade relationships particularly. I mean, if you look at what has happened with Africa post-colonialism, we then incepted these relationships with the West particularly, which are very, very kind of bilateral. And so what that means is our economies are just as outward looking as those railway lines which were outward looking, taking our resources outside of the countries when we were colonies of those countries, right? So for me, it baffles my mind to think that we still have things such as the Commonwealth. I've never been a fan of that club because I don't think you would have a club put together to celebrate people who were oppressed by the Nazis, for instance. You just wouldn't have that, right? So there's a dishonesty that comes with the relationships that we have kept with the West, So we need to be honest about that and have a confidence that says we are equal partners, and also not just look outwards like those railway lines looked outwards, taking resources from the country. Look inwards too. If you're in Zimbabwe right now, we opened the free trade across African countries, but I don't hear any African country talking about developing their education system in a way that speaks to the connectedness of Africa, so that we are learning from one another and we're trading with one another. We're still very bilateral, looking outwards in the way that we're doing our business. So to sum up my points again, I think it's important that we embrace the globality and internationality of Africanism, and embrace that the fact that we've got our people all over the world. But in doing that, let us be very clear about the kind of relationships we have. We need to have equal relationships, not subservient relationships. And we need to start asking ourselves the question, some of these clubs that we belong to, such as the Commonwealth, etc., what value do they actually give to us, both in terms of our mindset and how we view ourselves, but also in terms of economically? They really don't give us much value, right? But let's have relationships that are based on real relationships that respect both sides of the coin. That's my view.
Awesome. Thank you. Abraham, I don't know if you heard that last question. What is the economic, social, and development impact of these coups, and how do we solve them? How do we move forward? As we're wrapping up this panel discussion, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of share your last few words with us. Can you hear me?
There's probably a delay. There's probably a delay for him.
Okay.
I'm getting you now. I'm getting loud and clear. Yeah. So yes, as the comrade was saying, one thing people fail to understand, especially my generation of Africans that were not fortunate to be alive during the struggle for independence, we were born after the independence. So it is the reason why we could not sometimes understand the reality of what our people have been going through during the days of fighting against the colonial powers in the continent. And this the coup d'etats always, as I said, the negative side we never want, are always against the developments that are impacting positively the lives of the people. So therefore, the people must feel responsible that they need to protect their revolutionary leaders. Like, for instance, when we talk about Paul Kagame right now, Rwandan people, I have a friend from Rwanda who will tell me, yes, I might not agree with him, but I believe he's the best for the country. That is the type of attitude we're supposed to develop. Sometimes you might not even agree with somebody, but they are the best for the country. And that, I think, that is so impactful. So the implication of in economic part of this, you can just connect it to Burkina Faso. Within 4 years, Thomas Sankara was able to change the lives of all the people of the Burkina people. Not only changing the economic side of their lives, but was able to boost their morals in order to make them feel this new pride in them, that the Burkina was the most important thing than all their tribes, all their religions, also, or whatsoever might disconnect them. And as a result, he was able to plant how many millions of trees?
I think it's connection probably.
Be able to fix the railways for the country, build community schools, or with this responsibility. For instance, when you talk about my area, for instance, the Senegambian region, the Senegal and the Gambia United Kingdom dealing with one another. These are all African people that's supposed to be feeling that they are really connected. Well, I am Muslim, I am a Muslim. And another friend of mine is an Igbo from Nigeria who has no relationship, either Christianity nor Islam. But one thing that connects all of us is that when the colonial powers came, they were not killing us because we were Christians and Muslims. There was only one factor that was making them dehumanized, enslaved, treated us differently, was because of our Africanness, regardless of our colors. And the coups were here to stop those things. And any leader that was putting this in the minds of their peoples were the enemies of the West, and they need to be taken down, not democratically. They were supposed to be taken down by giving guns to people who are good for nothing for the society. For instance, when I talk about Kotoka of Ghana, a whole airport, all my trips to Accra, if I see the airport being named after Kotoka, and it brings back the memory for me, okay, this Kotoka was the man responsible of taking down Kwame Nkrumah. So are you getting the point? The coups are always taking us backward. But I have a motivation that I took from Thomas Sankara, that you can kill the idea, you can kill the individuals that are representing these revolutionaries, but you can't kill the people behind it. However, my generation have a problem of catching up with these people, because Nkrumah and these people were not afraid of dying for the continent. They were ready to be treated otherwise because of the continent. My generation of university degree holders, masters with our PhDs, in the universities we are taught to take ourselves first, not to take the risk for the continent, nor for the people, nor for any other person but ourselves. And as the reason why you see this Mandela Fellowship, yearly fellowship, whatsoever fellowship, that where everybody wants to become a leader, but a leadership that represents anti-Africanness in our African continent. Because believe me or not, we do not have problems that most of these leadership organizations have been part of. Name them Yali, name them Washington Fellowship, ask the types of leadership they're creating for Africa. And most of these people, when you pay attention to our continent right now, the people that are coming from the Mandela Fellowship, Obama Fellowship, whatsoever fellowship they might call them, they're the ones that have been pushed into the political class of our continent. And these are the people that have no or very little connection with the masses of our people on the ground. And they become the new class of, if you might call them in the terms of the miseducation of the Negro, you might call them the bourgeoisie class of our continent. And these are the people that will classify themselves as them and the people, but they also having the slave master ahead of them. So I said these revolutions can be protected, and they must be protected from one thing, that is the coup d'etat. The coups are always there. Like, I cried so bitterly when Magufuli died. And judge me if you like, I do not believe Magufuli died of nature. I believe he was taken down, and I believe we were defeated in that perspective, and we're supposed to come again, bring back new Magufuli, protect the Paul Kagame that we have, and then protect the likes of Julius Malema of South Africa. Because whenever these leaders are taken down, Africa is defeated once again. But whenever we protect them the way the Turkey people protected their president against the military. You could remember when coup d'etat happened in Turkey, the people came out to say no to the coup d'etat. Then the military should go back to the military barracks. That is the citizenry you need in Africa now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Powerful messages in there. I do appreciate that. All right. Well, I think we had really good discussion. Very broad topic. I think we have to dissect at some time in the future and actually focus on different aspects of this discussion to be able to really get a deeper understanding of, okay, what are we talking about? What can we do as the children of Africa, and how do we empower people in our surrounding, whether it's family or relatives or whatever. So thank you so much. Any last minute you guys want to add before we conclude this conversation?
Why don't you start, my brother? Yeah, and then I'll finish.
Okay. If there's any last message I have, the question I ask myself, and I like every young African to ask themselves, is that what do make me different from my grandfather who does not get access to university education? Because as far as we are concerned, we think we are the best of Africans because we get access to the Europeans or the Arabian education. Because if your grandfather was thinking about the tribe, and then his tribe was the best of all tribes, and therefore the only tribe that's supposed to be living in the country and then be responsible of everything is their tribe, then what does your education made you different from your grandfather, that the country belongs to all people? That your tribe only cannot take this continent, no country anywhere. If you ask another question, what do really make me different from my mother or my father who does not get access to these volumes of history, knowledge, and politics, economics? What do made me different from them? The simple answer becomes, well, it's supposed to make me think twice before taking decisions, because we know our leaders have been victims of the global power that was going around between the Western powers and the Eastern powers, the types of Nkrumah. You could see the Lumumba, all of them become victims of the global powers. So what do I need to think twice in dealing with the outside Africa world? But at the same time, what are the braveries I need to take from Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Lumumba, in order to understand there might be risk for me personally in this, but there's a victory for the rest of the people of this continent? Because this is the type of things we need to be careful of, what really made these people defeated our forefathers. But at the same time, the bravery our forefathers had with no sophisticated weapons in their hands, but they were able to face the risk. And the things might look different 2022, but as far as I am concerned in Africa, and the people that are actually being hostile to Africa, they got more sophisticated, but nothing changed. So there's a need to have this new African who is aware of the potential threat to their lives, but also taking the bravery because they're Africans and Africa needs them in order to be liberated.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Go ahead, dude. We can't hear you.
Apologies, I pressed the mute button. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear
you. Great. Yeah, when I look at my own personal journey, really, of kind of turning my life around from a place where I didn't feel like I could have opportunities to contribute meaningfully to society. The real kind of turning point was me stopping being a victim in my mind, right? And stopping blaming the rest, everyone else around me is the fault of, it's everyone else's fault, and I wasn't taking responsibility. And I think there's a lesson in there also for our kind of nation building and how we can be as a continent. I think we need to have a confidence amongst ourselves. One, a confidence a confidence in who we are, right? You don't need someone else to tell you who you are. You even if someone else stereotypes you and demeans you and say things, it will not have power over you if you have a firm understanding of who you are and a conviction of who you are, and that's how you live through a set of values. So coming from that place then of conviction and confidence, but also humility to know that we're serving a greater purpose than just our individualistic purposes, then I think we should be able to project ourselves, and I don't use the word project in a domineering way, but project ourselves on the global stage with confidence. We've got so much to share. Our cultures are vibrant. Let's embrace innovation. Let's enable our young people to I've just been amazed when I get on calls with young people who are creating platforms, and they say, well, this is the YouTube of Africa. This is the Google of Africa. I'm like, you know what? We'll get to a point where we create organizations that are called, I don't know, Kambala, whatever it's called, an African name, and we don't call it the YouTube of Africa. We say this is the Kambala of the world, right? So we do. So therefore, the gold standard doesn't become the West or a Western institution. It becomes what we created with confidence, and we project that in the world, knowing that it gives value to other people, not only just to Africans, but to everyone in the world. I think that's where our power comes from, and that's where our power will come from. But a power that serves our people, with authenticity and with humility, but also serves the world, understanding that for us to grow, actually we have to contribute value in the world. So I think that's a mindset that I think will help us moving forward. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Diana, any last minute you want to add? I know we're running a little bit behind, but I want to know if you have any last minute you would like to add.
I was cutting in and out, unfortunately. I was cutting in and out because of my connection.
Okay.
Yeah. But one of the quotes that I picked up from Ismaila was, "We need leaders, not looters." And I think he's absolutely right. We need leaders, not looters. That's what came out of it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And that will change. That will change it. If we have leaders that are passionate about our country, their countries,
then that's the way to go. And I think being a servant leader, I think earlier Ismail mentioned, we need servant leaders. We want people who are willing to serve others, not be, the I don't want to use that word, but the bosses of the people, but actually be the servant of the people, right? And be able to bring about true change. So I think we've taken a lot of different knowledge from this. And again, thank you for our panelists coming on and having this discussion with us. I really appreciate you guys. And then hopefully, like I said, we'll get the opportunity to be able to dissect these topics in the future and be able to help. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Awesome. We couldn't hear you, but
you can't hear you, Jimmy.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say thank you so much for your amazing hosting and your amazing leadership. We owe you a huge gratitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.
Thank
you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. See you again.
Of course. Thank you. All right. So next, we have Dr. Kevin Washington. The topic is about teaching authentic African history, the key to African liberation. And I think this is such a very important topic. I think recognizing, I think we touched on it a little bit earlier as well, how it's important for us to recognize Africa as the cradle of human being, right? And we have such a diverse continent. And so we have to recognize that we have to be able to look inward instead of outward, because that seems to be what we're doing constantly. and it doesn't seem to help. So I think looking outward and sharing our history with others, empowering our generation to be able to do that. So thank you so much, Dr. Kevin, for joining us. I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit, and then I will go on, give you the time to share that with us.
So thank you so much again for your hosting, as they said in the previous panel. Thank you for holding it down. Thank you, Daniel, for creating this space for us to have this conversation about African history. I am Mawata Kairi Sankara. That is the African name. We have the capacity to authenticate ourselves as opposed to using the oppressor's language. We'll talk about that at the end of this conversation. But I want to be able to suggest that I am an African-centered psychologist in the U.S., but the identity is indeed Pan-African and connecting us with one another to see us as one people. We must say slowly in our minds the name of Thomas Sankara. We must say that slowly that his name was rolled out, but I need people to say his name and to identify with his position, his principles, his policies, the idea of even renaming the location in the world as calling it Burkina Faso, land of the upright people, was a strong blow. And so brother said in the previous presentation how he was able to transform our country to see itself, and it was transforming the members of the country, the Burkina Faso, the people's consciousness through reorganizing their history. We must also say the name Kwame Nkrumah. We must understand Ghana and Kwame Nkrumah and what was his philosophy and how was he living and how was he structuring the entire world. How was he seeing himself as a being of Pan-African identity, that he saw himself across the entire continent, that not using the oppressor's bifurcation of what is called now Ghana and Senegal, and as mentioned earlier, Ibrahima mentioned about the Senegambia region and the divisions there, but saying that we are an African people. We must say Julius Nyerere, understanding the notion of education and consciousness. And so we say Julius Nyerere, we say Patrice Lumumba, and so we recognize Patrice Lumumba. These are reorganizing points in our consciousness because we call out our people who stood on the principles of their Africanity. We are not afraid of Jomo Kenyatta, right? So we call out these names, and we have to do a better job of calling out the names because, as Dr. Amos Wilson tells us, all history is psychohistory. Everything that we learn informs our psyche. We understand that the construct of psychohistory, used in some level by Isaac Asimov in his fictional work in the 60s, is the convergence of sociology, history, and the issue of mathematics, which informs economy. And I want to suggest that when we talk about psychohistory, we're talking about the restructuring of one's psychological well-being, a notion that when I get data points about who I am and what I am capable of doing, it changes things. So all history is psychohistory. Dr. Maulana Karinga reminds us that history teaches us three things: identity, purpose, and direction. It tells us who we are, and it tells us why we are here. It tells us what we got to do while we're in this space: identity, purpose, and direction. And so when we utilize the oppressors' points of demarcation of their history, then we find ourselves as African people on the butt of the entire reality of truth. The issue is that when we utilize European nomenclature, when we utilize European language, when we utilize their conversation, we get stuck on the backside of a reality. But when we understand the power of psychohistory, that is, when I tell you a narrative of who you are, and I tell a narrative about why you are here and what you're capable of doing, it changes things. When individuals were hypnotized and told that they did not have a past. They felt depressed. When they were told that you had no future, hypnotized, they felt hopeless. And so when you are told that as African people that your past is to be shunned and your future is uncertain, we can understand then why we have a population that is stuck in a position of ineptitude or apathy. But when we reorganize the consciousness by reorganizing the historical narrative that is told about those people, we then begin to see a shift in being, a shift in relevance, a shift in worth, a shift in value. And so this is why this is important. Let's then break down a construct of coup d'etat. When we understand the word coup, coup d'etat means, en français, means to strike against the state. Ask the fundamental question, who is striking? And what is etat? The idea of ta means this issue of that which was sovereign. What is the sovereignty that's been struck out against? And when we began to examine the most recent so-called coup d'etats, when we see them in Guinea-Bissau, and we see them in Mali, or we see such in Burkina Faso, we have to ask, what is the commonality of those? Well, if we begin to look at the resources that are there, not simply the people as resources, but the natural resources, we see that there is a high volume of gold that is there. Now, let's then drag that back to understanding Mansa Musa on his 9,000-mile journey from the inner regions of the Mali empire to a space where others saw the wealth of the gold of African people, and that began to shape the world to be able to say that I want some of that. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that for Mansa Musa and his people, gold was prevalent. And so today, wherever we see the coups occurring, the disruption around the so-called resources that people want to control. And that is critical because if we go back to Mansa Musa and the economy of the world, we see that gold became the gold standard because Europeans wanted to get more of the gold because they didn't have anything like it in their space. So they then rape and pillage the soil and take the substances from the soil, the earth, and then they go and they upsell it. And so then you have the countries with all of this so-called wealth, this phosphate, this bauxite, this petroleum, again, the diamonds, the gold, the aluminum, the timber. You have all of these resources that people are controlling, and they can control them through controlling the minds of the people by telling them that you know that you are inferior, that you are less than, that you have no value and worth. And so people begin to buy into that and then begin to say that if you want to have worth and value, you must partner with me. And these are the things that Patrice Lumumba was killed for, because he was saying, watch what is happening, control ourselves, control our wealth. Thomas Sankara said, know that you are people who are upright. See, it was not the issue of him striking out against a populace. He was striking out against an ideology. And we have to know that then history is about informing people of their identity, purpose, and direction. And so the psycho-historical nature is that when I can tell you that you have no value and worth, that you will be walking on gold, that you will have the diamonds, but never be able to benefit from them. And so then I take them from the soil and I go and I exploit them throughout the entire world, and then have you fight among yourselves over mere scrappings from the table, when in reality, it is worth a great deal on the world trade table. As was said earlier, it is a travesty that in order for neighboring countries on the continent of Africa can't just do free trade with one another. So we are looking hopefully for the African Union to move forward, and ECOWAS and others to make things a little different on the continent. But remember that the disruptor is still present. So when I name three countries, the common thing they have in common is that there is the colonial influence and or rule of France. And so you have the exploitation of a population through their getting their resources, through the ideology that they believe themselves to be inferior. And so they begin to play up the differences, and people begin to fight among themselves while they walk out with the resources and sell them on the world table. And then when one says, let's equalize this conversation about how we can generate the wealth, all of a sudden they become the problem. And then there's a coup to take out those particular leaders. Sometimes people are seeing the truth, and they're then being struck out against because they're saying, let us reorganize our relationships in the world. And as a result, we end up with populations beginning to have these so-called coups. But what is a coup? If it is said that it is a militaristic attempt to overthrow the government, who established the government in the first place? And typically the oppressor puts into position individuals that they desire to control or influence the oppressor's interests. And so when people begin to wake up to this particular interest, then they are considered to be the problem. In reality, the problem is the oppressor and not the oppressed. So the individuals such as Thomas Sankara and Julius Nyerere and others were reminding us that we are one people. Let's not be divided over things that really don't matter, because while we become divided, the oppressor France and the oppressor the UK and the oppressor the Arab nations walk out with all of the wealth, and they generate wealth while we remain impoverished. It makes no sense that we have a population that has the largest reserve of platinum and the largest reserve of gold to be among the poorest in the world. It is a function of being exploited that we have to recognize is going on, and that is about psychohistory. We believe ourselves to be inferior. We believe ourselves to be different, and somehow we are not necessarily as operating as one people. So as I talk as a part of this particular conference of the idea of African History Week, we must know our history. We must know our legacy. We must not allow the history to be retold by the oppressor. Because as long as they tell our narrative, they can confuse the populace. And as Ibrahim Cisse said in the last discussion, there is a younger conversation that does not know what the elders have done and the elders have done. And this is important, that we have to tell our story. We must be able to tell the story about the Malian Empire, Songhai, and we must tell those stories about the Ghana Empire. We must tell the narrative of the agri beads that were utilized, these glass beads that were utilized as forms of wealth on the continent. And the Europeans saw this and began to make these beads cheaply and began to cause Africans to become incarcerated by Europeans by putting them into debt by having a cheaper resource that had no value because it was cheaply made. We must know the narrative about the agri bead. And I'm not going to go into that long story. We must be able to tell our story, because as Dr. Amos Wilson says, all history is psychohistory. We must understand, what does a coup mean? To overtake, to overthrow the establishment. What was the establishment? Who established it? And for what purpose? Does the establishment serve the people? And all of the movements that begin to rise up to serve the people become disrupted eventually for a reason. And that is because the oppressor finds a way to control the population. Stephen Biko says the greatest weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. It's important to understand that when people can control your mind, they can control your thinking through what they have informed you about who you are. When we begin to have a conversation more pointedly about the narrative of what does it mean to be Igbo, what does it mean to be Yoruba, Hausa, Twi, Fanti, Kissi, what does it mean to be Tutu, Hutu, what does it mean to be that? Who are we as a people? What is it that makes us so wealthy? And why is it that people are always seeking to control the populace? We must understand, why are these particular disruptions occurring in certain regions at certain times? Who is funding them? With Africa, now I know no African country outside of South Africa that produces its own weapons, its own ammunition. Then who is funding this process? Who is facilitating the disruption with gunfire? And who benefits from that? We must understand and challenge those things. We must understand this idea of history and liberation. And liberation means to operate in a position of freedom. And I will submit here that freedom has 2 points to it. There is freedom from, and there's freedom to. And too often we get stuck in freedom from, but not go into a space of freedom to. I used to have a an animal in a small space, a small yard. And as soon as we got out to a larger space where this animal could run free and actually could leave, it ran for about 5 minutes, and then it came back and stood next to us. It was free from the small space, but didn't realize that it had a freedom to be what it was created to be. So I'm going to say here that too often we have celebrated our freedom from the direct influence and oppressive nature of oppressors such as Europe and France and other the UK and other groups. We have celebrated that too long, but we have not thought about deeply the freedom to. And the freedom to is to be, as has been stated so many times in this particular discussion, the freedom to be African. The freedom to be who we have been created to be. If the land is filled with the wealth, and the wealth of the world that the world desires to have, then if we tell the narrative properly, the people walking on the land are also the wealthiest people on the planet. Because within those people are the same resources that are within the earth, as above, so below. That we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So when we recognize that we have this great value and worth that the world desires to utilize for their economic benefit, and we see it in the U.S., we see it in sports, we see black labor, white wealth all the time. They're utilizing resources in athletics, they're utilizing resources in music and so forth. They're utilizing the resources in the sciences. The top students at Harvard Institution here in the United States come out of Nigeria. They're utilizing the resources to generate their wealth. But we have to understand that when we have freedom to, the freedom to be African, the freedom to do as the African Union did, say that we will use Kiswahili as our language to do business, the freedom to identify with who we are, the freedom to stand on the premises and principles of our forefathers and not allow them to tell us who they are, but we research them and study them for ourselves. We listen to Julius in South Africa. We listen to the great historian, the teacher in Patrice, the law professor, PLO Lumumba. We listen to them and then we execute the task. We don't shy away from them and their teachings because the oppressor does not endorse them. Liberation suggests that we have the freedom to and the freedom from. History tells us three things. It gives us identity, who we are. It gives us a purpose, why we are here, and direction, what we are to do while we're here. If we listen closely to the voices of our elders, if we listen to Queen Nzinga, if we listen to Yah Asantewa, if we listen to these particular leaders, we can begin to align ourselves with our true purpose and identity. And it has never been to be in servitude to anyone, that we have always been created to be the leaders of the world. That within us is great wealth. When we listen to Haile Selassie, when we listen to these voices and begin to allow them to become with something that speaks within us, as the elders or the ancestors in ancient Kemet said, Anuk Asar, I am divine, it changes things. But if we listen to the oppressor, we will always be downtrodden. We will always be defeated because their narrative is designed to make us in servitude to them for perpetuity. Well, I submit that when we talk about African history and African History Month, it is about coming together, celebrating the best of who we are, rising up in strength, in dignity, in power, and in might to know that we are the best that has ever been born. Know that we are the seed of a seed, of a seed, of a seed, of the seed. That narrative of history tells us that we are connected to all things sacred and divine. And we can rise up every morning and say, Anuk Asar, I am divine, and I will no longer be in servitude to the oppressor, because I understand I take my mind back, and I know that the greatest weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And history gives us that liberation of the mind. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Awesome.
we can hear you.
Okay. I was like,
Wow.
I muted. Yeah, that was
powerful.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. You have anything you want to say, Diane? I want to give you the opportunity first.
Anuk Asar, I am divine. I am divine. I tell you that I'm gonna start declaring that every day now. You know, you just really, it's something. You just blew me away. You said so many things, and I tried to scribble down. Freedom from, we celebrate it a lot, like you said, but the freedom, we're still not free. We're still afraid to express ourselves. We're still afraid to be, like you said, our authentic self, because we're still trying to please our oppressors. We still feel the need to do it. And that is the problem we need to get away from. This is the issue. We need to just drop it. We need to accept we are free. You said that if we have gold, if we have all the resources, we are the wealthiest people on the planet. So we have to start living like we're the wealthiest people on the planet. We have to start thinking like we are the wealthiest people on the planet. We don't need their permission, and we don't need their definition of who we are. You see? And these are the things. This is the kind of teaching. Honestly, Dr. Mwata Carey, we need you to open up schools all over Africa. We need your knowledge. We need to share that we need to share that far and wide with the youth, even with the adults, because the grown-ups, because we're taught to look up to our elders, but our elders need to be speaking the right things to us. They need their minds open to this. They're close to it because they're so used to doing things the way they've always done it, that although they're free, they still can't accept that they're free. You see? But we need this teaching far and wide everywhere. Our people, our children need to just grow up with this. Forget about the colonizers' ideology. Forget about it. Drop it now. We have to recognize we are free, we are wealthy. And Nuk Asar, we are divine. We were the first. These people who have come to oppress us, they've only just arrived. So who are they to dictate to us? Who are they to tell us how we should live, how we should walk, how we should express ourselves? Enough of that. I'm truly inspired, and we need more of you. Dr. Mwata Carey, we need more of you, and we need more of you everywhere. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister Diane. And that was good medicine. I'm feeling that. I thank you so much. We need that. We do not have to ask permission.
No.
To be. It's like me asking you permission. Can I go use the restroom? Do I really have to go use the restroom? My body says I got to go. Right?
Yeah.
And the reason why that's so important is because when there is the authentic self says, this is who I am, we don't need to ask permission to express it in the universe.
Yeah.
But we keep asking, is this okay? Do you like this?
Exactly.
Why would we ask the oppressor if they like what it is when the proclamation of our humanity is antithetical to their existence? That is that they exist counter to our presence. That is the point I'm making here, is that the only reason they have power is because they are not us. See, because they say that at least you're not them, you're not African. But the reality is that they need us to operate in a position of oppression so they can have power. But if we just raise up, the only reason why somebody can ride your back is because you're bent over.
Yep.
When you stand up, they have to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge for us is to recognize that they have counter power. That is, their power is antithetical to ours. But when we proclaim ourselves to be human, now we are a hate group. But yes, we are a hate group because we hate hate.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that you teach me to hate myself while you admire everything that I do. But then when I start admiring myself for my beautiful skin, my brilliance, right? My prowess, my wealth in the world, and you want what I have, and it means that much to you, then you need to pay me for what it is that you want. And therefore we have an equal relationship in the world. But until said time, we're still oppressed. And why? Because we believe ourselves to be inferior. There's nothing superior about a language or an institution. It's the belief of the people. And at one point, Africa, the continent, Timbuktu and Apetasut, had the first universities in the world that Herodotus, who was a Greek historian who traveled down into the ancient place called Kemet, and said that when I got there, people looked like they had been kissed by the sun, and that's where the word Ethiops come from. The Ethiops means burnt face or burnt eyes, and so Egypt means burnt skin. So the idea is that when the Greeks got there, they saw people who were of high knowledge and looked like they had been kissed by the sun, which means then that they learned from dark people. The point is that everything that we think is great and wonderful with Homer and the Iliad and so forth and so on, in reality, it is based on ancient African teachings. This we have to also teach to our children. We must know this, that we are the ancient ones, that in our DNA is something that's been here for perpetuity. Every female child that is born all the eggs that she'll ever carry in her entire life, which means the mother that gives birth to a female child gives birth to a grandchild, which means then that she is a seed of a seed of a seed, and then coming from her is the same thing. My point is that we recognize that we are divine.
We are. That means we were all from the beginning. If that is how it is, we all started from every one of us existed from the beginning. That is just astounding. It's just so deep. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. For me, I took the history gives us three things: identity, purpose, and direction. I think I found that very powerful because I think knowing your history, right? Who you are, your identity. Where do I come from? What is my history? And then knowing okay, this is my purpose because I know who I am. Right. And then saying, okay, then that gives you a sense of direction. So such a powerful message. Thank you again so much for joining us. We need more of these conversations to continue to happen. I heard Diana saying you need to open schools all over Africa. And I agree with that. I think we need to start educating and empowering others. Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And we hope to see you sometime soon.
Great work you're doing. Thank you, Diane. And thank you, E.
Awesome. All right. I think we're wrapping up here, Diane. Anything you wanted to say just from today's conversation?
It's been rich. It's been rich. And I think we have one more person who is coming to speak to us. He was scheduled to speak earlier. His name is Jordan Piara, and he is coming to speak on African in the Pacific. So, you know what? Before we wrap up, without any further ado, I'm going to add him to the stream. Welcome, Jordan. So good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. It's 4 a.m. morning in the Pacific. Sorry that I just got a phone call. Phone call just woke me up, so sorry for being late. But I'll just be real quick, and then I'll just start on with what I have to say. I'm Joran Pera, and I'm going to talk about African in the Pacific. First of all, I'll start with a little bit of history. And with Pacific, we have three ethnicity groups: Melanesian, Micronesian, and Polynesian. But the first people to arrive in the Pacific were the Melanesians and Australians. And the history started back around 50,000 years ago. The first groups, they migrated from Africa. They took the route, Southeast Asia route, and then they came to Papua New Guinea. And then the Australian, they went down to Australia after 25,000 years ago. The landmass between the current Australia and Papua New Guinea were in a one land. There was no water separating them. So what they did was they came from Africa, and then Melanesian came first, and then followed by the Australian, the Aborigines. Right now they call it Aborigines, and then they migrate down to Tasmania and Australia and all these places. And Papua New Guineans, now we call it Melanesians. Melanesian comprise of Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Island, and Vanuatu. They came and then they settled at Papua New Guinea. Melanesia, in Melanesia, Fiji and Solomon Island and Vanuatu, they dispersed all these little islands, atoll islands, later on. But Melanesian they settled first, and then they came up with agricultural practices. They were the first among those human in the human history to come up with agricultural practices, and history has recorded it, and they have evidence that Melanesians were the first people. So later, after 2,000 to 3,000 years, they came the Austronesians, which is now grouped into two groups, like I've said earlier, Polynesian and Micronesian. So they came later, maybe from the Southeast Asia, and then they came with cultivated some crops. They came with some livestock like pigs and chicken and all this stuff, and then they distributed out to all the islands. But I'm just focusing more on the Melanesians, as you can hear from the news, and like one of the struggles that we are facing in the Melanesia is like a West Papuan struggle. Like this is a good timing where we talk about African history, and then the people around the globe have to know their families around the globe, especially in the Pacific as well. And we have our own struggles. And one of the struggles that the neighboring Melanesians have is the West Papuan struggles. And we are struggling really hard. UN is kind of giving blind eye to our Melanesian struggle. And we are going through some struggles, but it's a good timing where we are talking about African history. We have to also know our African people around the globe, including Melanesian in the Pacific, and then whatever struggle and whatever things that we are going through, we have to share. At least people have to aware that there are some Melanesians, African in the Pacific, and at least it's to educate them, and then at least it's better. You family can know that we are here. We're from Africa. We migrated after 50,000 years ago. We came here, and then we are here. And I'm just more than happy to share a little bit history, and then how we are living here. So thank you very much. I'm not gonna talk that long, just short and brief. That's enough. I think that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Awesome, Jordan. Thank you so much. I think, African in the Pacific, I think a topic that we need to discuss more and bring to light because there's just a lot of, and I think a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of misconception as well. So maybe we can coordinate something around that just to do more education for people and share that. But thank you so much for coming on super early in your time. So we appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
You're welcome.
Diana?
Yeah, that's a big sacrifice, huge sacrifice on your part, coming on so early
No
to share a little bit of that. Yeah, so thank you so much, and definitely we need to hear more from you, and about the Pacific and
Thank
all
you.
you have to say. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries.
Thank you. All right. I think we have. We wanted to close with a music, I believe. So Diana, if you don't have anything last minute you want to add.
No, just to say that, it's been very, very rich. I mean, we started off with Dumi Sender telling us that, or reminding us that Africans need to wake up. Wake up to what? Wake up to the fact that we are great, and that we have to be the confident people that we're actually designed to be. And then we had the panel discussion on coup, and I think I said before, I got out of it that we don't need looters, we need leaders. And and then of course we had what's her name, Beth Linda talking about what it is to be an African girl, and the challenges and that we face there and everything, and then of course Dr. Mwata Carey, and reminding us that we are divine people and we don't need permission to be who we are created to be, and we have to have that confidence in ourselves to walk in that and to live in that and to manifest that. It's time to just drop the inferior complexes that we seem to keep holding on to, because we're free, and we have to recognize and understand that we are, and move in that freedom that we have. And yes, and of course our last speaker has come on to remind us that we are Melanesians, and they are among us too, and they have great history, and we're all connected. So it's been great, it's been rich, and I hope that our viewers have enjoyed it, and join us again on our next show, which I believe is on, when is our next show? It's on the is it the 12th? The 12th. I think it's the 12th.
Awesome. Yeah, I share. I think I share your perspective and some of the highlights that you made. I think all of the topics were great. I have learned a lot just from listening from everybody. About the coups we talked about. Such a powerful point raised up about who, what, for what purpose, and then also how do we empower our people? How do we empower one another to be able to bring or lift our people from poverty, and to be able to do that, to look within. I think that was one of the things that I really took from that. Look within, right? How do we as Africans come together and be able to invest, be able to optimize our resources versus constantly looking out to the east or to the north, or so just looking in and saying, how can we invest between Zimbabwe and Ethiopia, Kenya and Zambia? So I think that's really powerful. Look within, as we try to connect our community and be able to do that. And I hope our leaders can do that too, because I think oftentimes they're always looking out to the west or looking out to the east. And I think that's just continues to deteriorate some of the achievements we've made as well. And then I think with the last one with Dr. Kevin, we talked about the three, right? Knowing your identity, your purpose, and then finding your direction. Because I think that's one of the things. Last week we talked a little bit about media and their narrative that they set for us, right? So if we are to block everything and just look at what Western media have been teaching us and in the next generation about Africa, the poor, the hungry, that's always fighting, the tribalist, all these negative things that they continuously incite and try to manifest on us, right? And so the only way we can fight that is by telling our story, right? Knowing about our history and being able to truly say, actually, this is our story, and we're going to tell it in the way that we want, and being able to do that. So glad that we have this discussion, and I look forward to our next one. That's all I have. Okay.
So at this point, I'd like to say thank you to Jerusalem for co-hosting with me, In fact, I'm co-hosting with her. So we're co-hosting together. And I give a shout out again, once again, to United States of Africa and the Council of Ethiopian Diaspora Action for sponsoring this event, this fantastic event. I think we've played our artists. So I'm just going to close out with just our promo video and a few words from friends again. So see you next time, Jerusalem.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Welcome to African History Month. The African History Month is an annual event to celebrate the achievements of people of African descent and acknowledge Africa's enormous contributions to the world's civilization. The African History Month is celebrated from 1st of March to 31st of March. Join us in celebrating the African History Month.
Greetings, this is Miata Chroma. Welcome to African History Month.
Hi everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's African History Month. I am Diana Marquis Solomon and I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. It's African History Month.
We are Africans, not because we are born in Africa, but Africa is born in us. My name is Elsa, and this is my African History Month.